Moon Jellyfish by Ness Owen. Half the day is gone. Our words evaporate into the warm silence of the midday sun. We listen to the bladderwrack crunch, step carefully over the beach jellyfish, lulled by the warm currents. You want to paddle and have to steady yourself on my arm. It's easy to forget your age as our footprints disappear into the wet sand. Your feet, half the size of mine now, but I always felt bigger, even when I was small. I fill the silence with stories of beach days with my friends, the jellyfish we swam through, but only one of us was stung. Moon jellyfish glow at night. You don't ask why. My thirst to know won't end, but why should we be the same? You don't remember the jellyfish stories or letting me go out on the bike with no brakes, but you remember the girl taken by the wave and the mother who couldn't lock doors in case one day her little girl would come home.
On the First Calculation of the Circumference of the Earth by Alison Gerhard. Such luck to look down a well at noon and think, that's funny. More people knew the world was round than we ever gave them credit for. Columbus was an ass in kindergarten classes when we thought of tipping edges and some mystery beyond. Archimedes got his eureka in a bathtub and his promises to move the very ground we stand on. Eratosthenes got a stick and 3 camels and found the size of everything there was to know. 46,100 kilometers as the Earth turns.
Pocket Watch by myself, Katrina Yu. I serve lunch in the workshop. A bunch of glistening cherries, hunk of Gruyere cheese, some flatbread, water and Rioja for grandfather. The old man pecks as he grafts. Graphite smear on a cheekbone. Eyelids sweat-soaked as stubby fingers grapple with a toothpick. I pass him a rag over the bench, silenced by the concentration which fixes his face in a grimace, and watch the tiny spring cajoled into place, animating the dial.
High Noon by me, Mark Riffett. Howdy, partner. Howdy, Dan. They tipped back their Stetsons and gazed sternly into the distance. Any action on the High Sierra? No, nobody was, nope. I was scouting on the ridge after breakfast and there was nae loose steer, north or south, Danny. Head of cattle's got to be somewhere, Connor, and rustling's a dirty business. Them dang rustlers will get what's coming to them. Yes, sirree, I'll make sure of that today, Dan. The two cowboys nodded with grim conviction. It was going to be a tough day, but they would face down those ornery, no-good desperados, and they would beat them. Connor silently passed a treacle toffee to Danny. It was the closest to chewing tobacco that Connor could find in Uncle Dod's sweetie tin, and the whole gang agreed it was brilliant for making black spitballs. It was important to impress the gang. Reckon we need some sarsaparilla. Sun's getting high in the sky. They set off for the Dry Gulch Saloon, known to others as McNabb's Shop and Save. Their progress slowed by practicing their swagger and testing out their quick draw technique. Cans of cola in their pockets, they negotiated the single carriageway of Skull River Pass, daringly crossing while the green man was flashing. And they avoided a tribe of marauding Sioux warriors in the guise of shrieking girls from the high school returning from their swimming lesson. They paused outside the Thistle Tavern and crouched close to the ground. These are fresh today, Connor. Darn tooting. Looks like the left-hand gang. Maybe 12 of the varmints. The boys recounted the cigarette stubs on the pavement. Yep, reckon a good 12, and they ain't gonna get 4. They reached the swings and climbing frame of Cowhide City and joined the gang. Connor shared out the treacle toffees. Then tactics, weaponry and terrain were discussed. The ceremonial handover had just begun when Connor was hauled backwards by a meaty hand clamped onto the back of his collar. We've been ambushed! He wriggled to face the dang blasted enemy who had dared to sneak up on his big day. The hand belonged to his mother. She was breathing fast and redder than a prairie sunset. Connor, Christ, I've been looking everywhere. You can't just bugger off. The social wifey's come in the morning. She's got to see both of us. She winced, pressed her free hand into the folds of fat over her ribs, and pushed her face into his. He smelled beer. Christ, you've given me a seizure. She hauled herself upright and glared at the little boys in their checked shirts and cardboard hats. Piss off, you wee nutters. She yanked him by his skinny arm back in the direction of their flat. But Ma, I can't go back yet. It's my big day. Please, I've waited ages. Please don't make me. She was wheezing by the time they reached the Thistle and sat heavily on a beer crate at the back door. Connor glowered and swayed with rage. Bubbles of snot covered his top lip. He drew his Colt from the elasticated waistband of his jeans and aimed it between her eyes. The late morning light caught the peeling silver paint on the gun barrel. What? It's my turn for sheriff today. I waited ages for my turn and it's nearly high noon and I'm in charge of rounding up the rustlers and leading the shootouts and everything. I've worked it all out. It's going to be brilliant. Best ever. Let me go, or I'll shoot. She looked at his fierce little face, and for once didn't see his bastard father and all the misery that he'd brought, but a boy who could, maybe, have a chance to make something of his life. She started to cry. Connor kept his gun trained on her. Then she mumbled, "Sorry," and opened her arms. The smokers who'd been watching the scene turned away, and Connor bent down. She cried into his shoulder and squeezed him tight. "It's okay, Ma, stop greeting." Eventually she stopped. She wiped her face on her sleeve and sighed. "You're really in charge today, the big boss." Connor looked through the grubby windows of the Thistle to the clock above the bar. Not anymore. It's 5 past high noon. I've missed my turn. He reholstered his Colt and adjusted his Stetson. Come on, cowboy, the social wifey'll be chapping at the door. They walked in silence to the corner of their road. The family support worker's car was parked outside the block. She patted his bony shoulder. I'm sorry about your big day, son. You'll be sheriff next time. He shook his head. You have to wait your turn. That's how it goes. Aye, but what if you're kidnapped by, you ken, what's it's, Comanches? Well, maybe if they tied me up and tortured me for days and days. The family support worker was standing on the pavement tapping her watch. We'll see Mrs. Ironbreeks first, Connor. Then we'll plan your escape from the engines. Connor was already standing proud in the dusty main street of Cowhide City, the townsfolk clapping and the six-pointed star of authority blazing on his chest in the noonday sun.
Noon Talk by Graham Birchall. Noon is a Chanyin language of Senegal, spoken in the Thiès region. Noon Talk is vulnerable. Like December daylight, there's not enough of it. On the shortest of days, it shows me a slant of fine rain in the gap between my window and the wall of laurel opposite. There must be a word for such a condition, one more pewter than merely gloomy. In Senegal, where it is the same time, there'll be no talk of precipitation, of middays compared with metals, except perhaps gold or copper, or of it getting dark soon. In the city of Thiès, where it is also the shortest day, who will speak of it, sat in the shade of a giant baobab tree? They'll have other things to laugh and cry about, to string in sentences full of sand, pre-nasalized occlusives and geminate consonants.
Sun Beats Over New Orleans by Natalie Gasper. I took a stroll past Jackson Square today, just as the out-of-tune bell began to mark the luncheon hour. The first chime rang out as two young lovers stole a kiss beneath the low-hanging branches of a vibrant oak tree. 3 marked the horse-drawn carriages as they clip-clopped and rolled down Decatur Street. 4 tourists ambled by with their fresh beignets as the 5th bell sounded. With the 6th chime came a soft breeze off the Mississippi River, the only relief from this 7-day streak of midday July heat. 8 artists stationed by the wrought iron fence made their final marks on bright cityscapes as the bell sang out, striking its 9th peal. A flutter of wings drew my eyes to the sky as 10 mourning doves made their daily rounds above Andrew Jackson, his hat forever tipped to everyone who passes, his mount reared up to greet the day. At the 11th bell, the sun, peeking out from billowy white clouds, cast shadows scarcely large enough for field mice. High noon came at last with a final echoing clang, expanding out across the square.
Arthur Streeton advises his students by Mandy MacDonald. No, none of that flat, transparent light. Your light needs to slant, scatter, explode in loose, fierce brushstrokes. White-hot blades fallen off the sun to crash land among your gum trees. Smash the vertical design. Think of those skeleton trunks as maenads. You know the myth, don't you? Bacchus and his dancers. Sinewy, silvery, improbably upright. The maddening Thyrsus wand, a shaken gesture of leaves high up. Thick flicks of grey-white paint, edged with sun, praising the light, its cruelty. Whatever pigments you use, think of everything as white. If there is water in these pictures but no blue in it, make it a quicksilver snake. The grass between the trees, a sheet of pale beaten gold. Out here, it is everlasting, violent noon.
Karen anchors. I'm late for work, as usual. Running round looking for my keys, as usual. How do they always end up down the back of the sofa? I run into the kitchen to grab some fruit to take with me, glance up at the old scratched clock to check the time. And that's when I notice the little hand is missing. The big hand is almost at 11. I watch impatiently to see if the little hand will peep out from behind it, but it doesn't. First thought, find an alternative method of time watching. Where's my phone? At the bottom of my bag. Of course it is. 11:55. Next thought, she'll be lonely. Where did that come from? I watch the big hand, the mother hand, and I know she'll just keep going, visiting each number before she moves on. She won't even notice her child is gone. Will she? No one noticed any change in me when you left. I made sure of that. I carried on, did all the usual things. I went to work, cleaned the house. Any gaps in my grey-scaled soul were covered each morning with bright clothes and makeup. Caught in routine like a fish in a net, I gasped for breath, and no one saw. The clock is only a cheap plastic thing. I should throw it away and get a new one. After all, that's what you do with broken things, right? But I can't. Suddenly I'm on my knees searching the tiled floor for a tiny piece of plastic, knowing that each moment that passes is losing me money. The little hand is nestled neatly in the ground between two tiles. I pick it up carefully and hold it to me, as I once held you. And then I get to my feet and look at the mother hand as she moves up towards the 12, where she would normally meet her child. And that's when I know work can wait. I might still catch the bus if I run. I'll mend the clock later with some glue, but right now, I can hold this child to his mother for one precious minute. And in that minute, I'll remember the time before you were swallowed by a uniform and learned to march to the beat of power and greed, before your steps were measured by shoe-shined rules, before they sent you to a country whose name I can't spell or pronounce to fight for a cause I can't understand or support. The doorbell is sudden and harsh as a hyena's cry. I'll ignore it. Whoever it is will go away. But they don't. The bell screeches again. I look at my phone. 11:57. I close the kitchen door firmly and move towards the clock. And then there's a knock on the back door and a face peering through the window. The face belongs to a head tilted slightly to one side. A woman. Hard to tell her age. She's holding up a pile of leaflets. I gesture to her to go away. I don't want to buy whatever she's selling. She's saying something. I can't hear through the double glazing, but I'm starting to read desperation in her eyes. 11:58. Behind me, the mother hand continues her patient journey. I take a step towards the window to explain somehow. And then I see the face on the leaflets and the word above the face. A young man, handsome like you were before they cut your hair, and the blood-red letters above the face spell missing. The woman's mouth is framed around a please. 11:59. I'm still holding the little hand firmly, as she once held his hand, as I once held yours. I open my palm to show her the tiny piece of plastic that nestles there. She stares, fascinated, as time moves on to noon, and I step back towards the clock. I reach up and hold the little hand to its parent. Our eyes hold each other, and she smiles and holds her arm above her head as she joins me in this curious ritual only a mother would understand. I count the seconds with my breath before I gently remove the little hand from her mother and wrap her in my fingers. And the mother hand continues on her slow, smooth journey. The face at the window watches and smiles. And then I unlock the door and ask how I can help.
On windscreens, deluge of light unleashed. Tributaries of sunshine splash and snap against side street walls, roaming down stone-worn stairways to deep-rooted shadows, yappy dogs to an old hound. A solitary shaft slaps windows, challenging traffic, racing quick glances. A cocktail is shaken in tinted trails. Here, a glint off a razor as a neck is shorn in a Turkish barber's shop. In a flower shop, petals reach out, clear their throats. A floor above hunched shoulders in a betting shop, a girl sings through mercury chimes. Her open apartment window, a momentary mirror, reflecting light, casting shadows in a cave. All sounds but this harmony are silenced. I am owned by this commonality. The clash of cloud, sun, metallic blue sky, owned by the race through the crowd, the steady plod of feet and pushchair wheels on pavement slabs. A boy rattles a collection tin. Mistress of finesse, of fickleness, take notice. Here is our sadness and our happiness. Autumn leaves in a puddle when the rain has stopped. The bells chime and the sun pushed through. Strange, there are no trees here.
An Autumn Noon by Ian Gross. In the half-done day, before afternoon's pull, a pause, as the sun finds its balance between extremes. Darkness seems distant, as sunlight, gathered in a gaze drawn upward, recalls the long summer song, singing in the blaze of its midday. But wait, in the shrunken shadows of the leaf-bare trees that live remembering the deep dark of winter to come.
I Am Not Beautiful at Noon by Eleanor Brooks. At noon, you think you have me where you want me. Hold me at bay, high on the tips of my own spears. I hang like a naked light bulb, burning my prisoner's blinded eye. Harangue and harry you, hot and angry. Maddened, I make you face the white spaces of my ire, or flee into shadows that dwindle to a dot and disappear. I am not beautiful at noon. But when the dark arrows of birds pierce the hedgerows at dusk along the lanes, and you untie me from the sky, I run down the sloping fields and launch myself out over the plain, beyond the reach of the children and their handfuls of wet grass. Glorious, I slip beneath your horizon.